Oh, hello. Happy Friday. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to bring a little friend in here this morning, have a little coffee and a chat with my friend John. I'm very excited. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's see here. Oh, there's John. I see him. I'm going to bring John in. Let's see. Where is my friend John Acuff? Have you all seen a couple posts that I put up this last couple days? I mean, John Acuff is the man. He's got a new book. We're going to chat about it this morning because I am here for it.
Hey!
Oh, ladies and gentlemen.
Black t-shirt day. Let's go.
I got the V, you got the straight cut. Ladies and
go.
gentlemen, John Acuff is here.
I love it.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Hey, I didn't know you were a runner. I'm
a runner.
Dude, I'm a runner too.
I was not a runner for a long time. And then running has just become this magical combo of therapy and church.
Yeah.
And when things have been hard in my life, I get on the roads to process those hard things.
Amen.
Tell you what,
Amen.
I ran 2,000 miles this last year. So there's been some hard things, but the roads have just been the most magical thing. So therapeutic.
Oh yeah, I feel the same exact way. For me, my wife will sometimes go, I think you need to go run. And that's her subtle way of being like, you're kind of being a huge jerk right now. Like you need to go process whatever this is. And I'll be like, I'll get my shoes. And then I go do that thing. So
you know what's weird too with running? Like there are plenty of times where I have a regular music mix that I'll listen to, but there are also days where I just have to mix it up depending on what it is that I'm trying to work through. So it could be that I'm going to listen to worship on that day. It could be that I'm going to go with no music and just sit with my thoughts. We talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but like inviting my thoughts to just sit and be present with me has been a thing in this last couple of years.
Yeah, for me, I've been asking fears like in for coffee to see what they're really about.
Same.
And because if I fight them, I don't get to learn from them. And so like, it's just been a process of going, well, what is that? Let's have coffee. Let's talk. And sitting down with the fear and going, okay, let's unpack this together versus going, I'm going to fight you because I shouldn't be afraid.
Yeah.
And that's changed a lot.
I've talked a lot about anxiety has been a very constant emotion in my life. And I usually would kind of mute it, push away from it, try to just disregard that it exists or spin from it and become a monster because of it. Mm-hmm. And I ended up in this therapy that I've been doing, have just really tried to make a relationship between myself as an observer of that emotion. Hey, anxiety, what are you here for? And what are you trying to tell me?
Yeah.
And the same can be said for fear. The same can be said for anger. The same can be said for, frankly, any emotion or any thought. I mean, like this idea of soundtracks, it's the same kind of thing. And so many times when I've actually allowed anxiety or fear or whatever, a place at the table to represent what they believe the role that they're playing to be, they then are able to afford me some insight, some intel. Yeah. And with anxiety in particular, I'll tell you, anxiety for me has almost every single time tried to draw my attention to a part of my life where there is not yet clarity in a space where ambiguity exists. And in that ambiguity, it believes its role to be just drawing my attention and focus to it so that if I were to spend some time making a plan around it, it would satisfy what it believes its role to be. And the thing that's crazy too, and I don't know if you found this, but so many times my emotions, even if they are negative emotions, think themselves to be doing a positive role in protecting me or keeping me safe. And just even like acknowledging them in that way has changed the way I have a relationship with them.
100%. I sent you that book, The Voice of the Heart.
Oh, I got it this morning. I just got it this morning.
Like, you're going to read it and then immediately text me and be like, what? Like, it is exactly what you're talking about. And so it just talks about, okay, the core feelings you have and how anger is actually about passion. And when you think anger is bad, you don't get to live out of your passion. And so like you can take it the wrong direction, but if you don't acknowledge it, like you don't get to learn from it, you don't get to grow from it. I mean, for me, I don't remember if I said this on the podcast, but like the one specific fear, anxiety that I have is, okay, I won't get it all done. I won't get it all done. And the problem is we haven't lived in a done world in 100 years. You're not going to get it all done. But every morning at 7 a.m., I'll hear this fear that goes, it's too late. The whole week's already a wash. And I'm like, it's 7 a.m., dude, like on Monday. And so finally I invited that fear in, and I was like, you know what? I think you just have a huge lust for life. I think you really love life, and there's so many things you want to do, and that turns into a fear. So like, I think you just have a really big heart for life. And the fear was like, oh, I thought this was going to go really difficult. And I was like, why did you think it'd go difficult? And it was like, well, you wrote a book called Punch Fear in the Face. So I kind of felt like you were going to punch me in the face. I was like, oh, I did do that. I did do that. So let me change how I approach fear. So I love that. This is why these
By the way, though, like just that single thing, though, just reframing, I have a lust for life, instead of I am overwhelmed by not feeling like I can never get enough things done. That's a game changer, right?
Yeah,
like
100%.
The entire thing gets this change now.
100%. So then when I go, there's more than I could possibly do today. Yeah, because my heart is massive. And the phrase, the soundtrack, I'm all about soundtracks. The soundtrack that I have is that my imagination will always be bigger than my calendar. My imagination will always be bigger than my calendar. So no wonder I have more than I could possibly do. The day is small and finite. My imagination is massive and rambling and rambunctious. And so when I frame that, the prison of a to-do list becomes a toy box.
Now you get to pick and choose, how do you want to try and satisfy that lust for life by prioritizing the biggest needle movers that are actually going to make a difference.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I was so excited to get to do your podcast, because we've never actually connected. We've just been in passing green rooms or in publishing conversations or whatever. And so the chance, because I was I know we're going to dig each other. I know we're going to dig each other when we get to talk. And I was 100% right. It was so fun.
The crazy thing is, we did the podcast, it came out yesterday, but we recorded it maybe 10 days ago.
Yep.
And I can tell you, we have had no less than 15, 20 texts back and forth, random things, observations in the day. And we're going to have that for the rest of the time. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing, the thing that comes out of,
I can't wait to get to Austin. We're going to go on a run together. I'm going to keep saying hey, here's a thing I found that I think would fill your heart. That's fun. And there's not 100 of those people. It's always a small section where you go, okay, this person is on the other side of something, or they've learned some stuff, and I want to be in relationship. That's fun.
So the book that you just came out with is so relevant to every human. Ladies and gentlemen, blue cover and all.
Exactly.
It's called Soundtracks. And I will butcher this, but I'll let you then explain it in the right way. But the idea of soundtracks, for anyone who is not familiar with this concept, is just these are the things that are playing on loops inside of our head, the stories that we tell, that we have given weight to, that in having decided that they are stories to believe, have limited us from believing that we have the ability to chase our goals, compromise our self-worth, or enforce our self-doubt, the things that would keep us from moving forward and doing the things that we maybe have been placed on this planet to do. The idea that you posit in this book is that you can become the DJ of the soundtracks. You can rewire, rework, replace the broken soundtracks, and actually start listening to soundtracks that set you up for success.
That's exactly what the book's about. Is that fair? Yeah, 100%. The big thing is most people don't understand they get to choose their thoughts. They think that a thought is something they have, not something they own. And so once you realize I can change my thoughts, which change my actions, which change my results, you can change your life. And what's been fun is we've already seen people go, for instance, I posted this woman's story the other day. She's going bald. She's a woman going bald, which is really challenging. And so she's told herself for years, no one wants to see you out front. No one will ever, and she said she changed her new soundtrack was, people want to see me and be known by me. People want to be known. And another guy posted, he said, I can't be a good dad because I didn't have a good dad. That was his old soundtrack. I can't be a good father to my kids because I didn't have a good father. Yeah. And he changed it to, I have a heavenly father who can teach me how to be a good father. And so that's generational change. His kids will be different because he has the free, and that's what's really fun. I think the best part of the things that you and I get to do is that we get a front row seat to life change. And that's amazing. And so to watch somebody go, oh, so you're saying I get to love myself. Like, oh, you're saying I get to rewrite the story I tell myself about myself. Like and there's tools to do that, and there's ways to do that. Like it's just fun. Like I just feel thrilled that I get to be any part of that.
Yeah. What's crazy is I think life works in this way. Like you hear something from one source and you're like, okay. And then you hear it from a second source and you're like, huh. But then like the third source, the fourth source, you're like, oh, maybe God's trying to send me a message. Maybe the universe is trying to send me, whatever it ends up being. And for me, I can tell you the combination of this work I've been doing around self inside of therapy, internal family systems is what it's called, reading a book by Joe Dispenza that was all about challenging the way that you think.
Yeah, the placebo effect to me was like, what?
Right? Reading The Untethered Soul, like you're the observer to your thoughts, you're not your thoughts. Reading your book, it's like there has just now been this consistent drumbeat in my life. And I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't like a one-time thing. Now I have to like pull my chair up and sit up close and listen because there's something to this. And I think that there's plenty of times in my life where I just assumed the things that I was thinking are the things that are real. And the things that I'm thinking are not necessarily real. I put up the post this morning of the 3 questions to ask if you are confronted with what ends up being a broken soundtrack. Will you just tell people what those things are? Because they're so simple, but it will change your life.
Yeah, so the first question is it true? Is this thing I'm listening to true? The second question is it helpful? Does it move me forward or hold me back? And the third question is it kind? If I said it to a friend, would they still want to be my friend? For instance, the other day, somebody who has a really successful podcast told me they've been #1 in their category for 9 months. And their soundtrack is telling them, you're just lucky, you're just lucky, you're just lucky. And when I gave him those questions, he said, if a friend told me they'd worked on something really hard and had been successful for 9 months, I'd never go, well, you're just lucky. You would never say that to a friend. So why are we okay saying that to ourselves? And once you ask those questions of your loud soundtracks, you go, something like it might be true. I don't know how, somebody will go, I can't save money because I don't know how to invest in the stock market. You might not. That might be true. But is that helpful? Does telling yourself over and over again, you can't save money or pay off debt because you don't understand the stock market, is that helpful? Is it kind to go, hey, you're an idiot, you don't understand the stock market? Of course not. So you might want to go, okay, I need to retire that one. So for me, those 3 questions, they're so simple, but it's like anything else in life. The simple stuff usually has layers to it. And if you'll sit with it for a minute, you go, wait a second, I can do this. And this is the start of a journey, not the end of it. And I think those are 3 journey questions.
Yeah. What's great is when you identify, hey, I'm believing something that is actually holding me back, right? You like realize, oh, this is a broken soundtrack. That ends up being the first step in what ends up being your 3 steps to trying to now have something that is more meaningful, the 3 R's. Yep. We talked about it in the podcast, but I think, again, like what's great about this book, right? This book is not, oh, read this book and all of a sudden your life will be changed. No. This book is like you have now a playbook that if you were to follow some of the very practical advice on how to rewire the way that you approach listening to your thoughts, you will think differently, which is a completely different thing. But the 3 R's to me were so powerful because they're so simple. They're not easy, but so simple. Will you just tell people what those are?
Yeah, sure. So you retire your broken soundtracks. So we identified one, we retire it. You replace it with a new one. So, okay, I get to write a new one. I get to create a fresh one. And then you repeat the new one so often it becomes as automatic as the old one. And so like one of the things I like to say is like, don't give the problem a year and the solution a week. So that's what the repeat process is. Because a lot of times, say somebody wants to lose weight, they'll go, the diet and the exercise didn't work. And I'll say, well, how long did you do it? And they'll say 10 days. And I'll say, well, how long did it take you to gain the weight? 10 years. You gave yourself a decade to gain it and only 10 days to lose it. That's really unkind. What if we figured out how to repeat it? So yeah, you're going to retire some broken ones. You're going to replace them. And then you're going to find creative ways to repeat them. So you start to believe them and they start to become automatic. The way your brain works, you're going to be in situations where something happens. And instead of grabbing the old broken soundtrack, it grabs the soundtrack that's on top, the most recent one, the one that you've put in place. And you're going to have moments in your day where you know how you would have reacted and you don't react that anymore. And you go, wait a second, that was different than I know me to be. What's going on? It's because you've replaced it and you've repeated it. And so it's on the top of the pile and your brain goes, okay, this is what we do in these situations. We don't overreact. We don't think somebody's out to get us, like I've, mine, example for me is I've been taken advantage of in business situations before, lost money, lost, some, that just happened. And it's really easy for me to have that broken soundtrack follow me into every other new business opportunity. And now I'm in the room and I'm hearing this soundtrack that's saying, watch out. Remember, they're trying to get what you have, like watch out. And my hands are really, really tight and I don't even have them open to receive new opportunities. And so I have to replace that. Like, this is one, I'm just pulling it off the wall. Like, one of my soundtracks says, people are trying to give you money. Like, people are trying to give you money. Like, don't put up these walls because you've been hurt in the past. You have to be open-hearted with it. And so, like, you could say, okay, well, that's just a silly thing on a note card. It is, but there's a story there. And as I repeat it, as I let that truth land on me, it changes how I show up in meetings. And now I'm not trying to find booby traps, and I'm not paranoid about the opportunity. I'm present in the opportunity.
What I love too, this is something that just like stuck with me and I cannot get it out of my head. When we have a broken soundtrack that we have gone back to over and over, every single time we've gone back to it, we've added another handle to it.
Yeah.
The idea of handles is amazing. As in, if you keep going back to it, every time you go back to it, you add one more handle, meaning when you reach down to grab for some soundtrack, the one that has the most handles often is the one that you will pick up. And I even will take it a step further because you talked a little bit about the strength or the size of the handle because of the way that the person who may have placed that limiting belief or that soundtrack there had power because of how much you love or crave love from them. If you have a bunch of handles and some big handles because of who might have placed it there, the tendency to go back to that broken soundtrack is just unbelievably higher, which is part of what you have to remember when you're replacing it with something new where there are not as many handles and certainly not handles the size of the ones that previously existed.
And that's where you have to have grace for yourself. You have to have grace that, okay, I've got this thing that took years to get in place and it's really easy and it's really automatic because it's covered with handles. And so this new one, I'm going to give it time. I'm going to give it time for me to put some good handles on it, for me to remember this phrase, for me to prove this phrase to myself, for me to live with this versus the old one that, like you said, like if it was a parent, if it was a boss, if it was somebody in authority or somebody that you desired to have love from, then it's a huge handle. And the challenging thing is often it's an offhand comment. The person that said it doesn't even know they put that there. I mean, one of my favorite examples, there's an 82-year-old named Judd who's a volunteer at the YMCA. He volunteers in the skate park. He's never skateboarded in his life, but he loves to do that because he knows that kids that are 13 are developing soundtracks. And so one of the stories they told me was a 13-year-old came in and said, hey, I'm going through this really challenging situation and it's all my fault. And he was able to go, it's not your fault. Like you're a 13-year-old. It's not like the brokenness of the world isn't your fault. And that was the chance where a broken soundtrack was going to take a root and Judd could say, hey, wait a second. No, that's not true. And so I think that's part of the beauty of community. That's part of everything you've described about your last year. You haven't said, and I did it alone and I did it by myself. You said,
not even close.
Not even close. You have community. And so that's the other aspect of this is when you get to link arms with other people who are full-hearted and go, hey, let's go into this together. That's when you start to see crazy life change.
Yeah. I think the biggest and most important takeaway for anyone who's jumping in, even if you're jumping in late, this is John A. Cuff. He's got a book that's called Soundtracks. It is just
looks like this. It's available.
It's beautiful. It's blue. There's a thinker on the front. The idea that we are overthinkers by nature, 60,000 thoughts every single day. So many of them end up being unconscious. I mean, I don't think that we are conscious necessarily of so many of the things that we decide to do because of just believing that, oh, our thoughts are real and we ought to just believe the things that we think. This is trying to help people appreciate that they have the power to choose how to think, the power to choose how to take which thoughts are real and move forward with them, and how to release themselves from the thoughts that don't support or serve them moving forward. If you could get a handle on this, I mean, that's the second time I've used the word handle, this would be a complete game changer for every human that's listening, because we have so many thoughts. We just have so many. You did this survey. I want to say that 95.5% of 10,000 people identified as being overthinkers, right? Like overthinking is just a part of our humanity. So we have a responsibility as overthinkers to try and challenge the way that we think, or at least process our thoughts.
Think about it this way. The story you'll hear the most in your entire life. I don't care if you've read Harry Potter 50 times, if you've, read Lord of the Rings 100 times. The story you'll hear more than any other story is the story you tell yourself about yourself. And imagine if that could be a good story. Like, imagine if you could write that story. Imagine if it could be a story that encourages you, that wakes you up with joy, that pushes you out the door, that pushes you into situations where you get to be brave. Like, that's what the book's about. Can you write the story you tell yourself about yourself? You can. And here's how. Here's how to do it with the thoughts you pick, the thoughts you create. And yeah, you get to see life change. And here's the thing I'd say. So if somebody gets the book, I think it's today, it ends at midnight. Before midnight, they can get the entire audiobook for free. So if you get the book and go to soundtracksbook.com, I'll send you the entire audiobook for free. I read it. There's a ton of bonus stuff. So if today you were like, oh man, I'd love to know more, definitely check it out. The older I get, the more I like reading a book and hearing the book at the same time. It like fires on both cylinders. So if somebody's like, hey, I want to check out the book, awesome. Get it today, soundtracksbook.com. Soundtracksbook.com. I'll send you the audiobook.
Amazing. So good. You're a good man, John. I appreciate you for the work that you do. I mean, you also have written 7 other books?
6 other books, yeah.
Well, it feels like 100 other books, but doesn't matter. You're doing good work, and this as a resource that will fundamentally change the lives of humans that read it. I'm here to tell you it is worth the read. I'm grateful for you. My mini schnauzer, not grateful for being locked outside. I'm gonna be out.
Oh yeah, got a broken soundtrack right now, probably at the door.
Why won't you let me in?
This has been a blast. Dave, friends have been sending me the things you've posted and going, have you seen this? And I'm like, yeah, like, he's my friend. Like, that's awesome. Like, of course so I just want you to know I'm so grateful for you sharing your influence, because you care about your audience and don't casually share that. So that just means a lot to me that you're willing to do that, and you've been so kind and so generous with who you are and your audience. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Oh, of course, man. We're going to do this many, many times.
This is the start, dude. This is the start. Like, we are wearing black t-shirts, dude. That's a gang. Come on.
This is the Friday uniform, y'all. Come on. All right, go pick up the Soundtracks book. If you don't already, follow John. He's got so much wisdom. He's funny, which I obviously appreciate as a primary commodity in my own life. But he's also really focused on goals, really focused on the practical, pragmatic stuff that's going to help you move forward in your life. And he's written some stuff that, honestly, if you decide to indulge in it, invest in it, it'll change your life. So good work, John. I'm glad that you were able to jump on this morning. I'm excited for you in this book launch. Appreciate you, brother.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Dave. Have a great rest of your Friday, man.
All right, dude. Take care. We'll see you soon. Buddy. Isn't John great? I mean, John is just the greatest. If you get a chance, I promise you, you will not be disappointed in reading any of the work that he's written. He's so good. The entire conversation, we have like an hour-long conversation on yesterday's Rise Together podcast. So you are certainly welcome to jump in and listen to that as well. He's one of these guys. He said it in the quick conversation here. He's one of these guys that I had been following him, he following me, we passing DMs back and forth every once in a while. We had this opportunity to jump together into this conversation for a podcast, and subsequently have immediately become unbelievable friends. And it's going to be something that I just know will last for a long, long time, because he is doing good work, and I'm here for putting anyone who's doing good work up into the world. So anyway, I hope everybody has a fantastic Friday. Fantastic to see all of you here. Hi, Mindy. Oh, I'm about to record a podcast with Mindy today. I'm excited about that. Anyway, I hope everybody has a fantastic Friday. The book, again, is called Soundtracks. You should take a look at it. If you buy it today, apparently, if you go to soundtracksthebook.com, you're going to be able to get the audio version of the book in real time for free. So anyway, have a great day. See you all soon.